Hello again, and I am going to do a commentary that I threatened to do months ago when I saw Please Rewind's video on postmodernist storytelling in Hollywood. And for me, what makes this really important is that I have recently been rewatching old documentaries of films from the New Hollywood era, specifically my favorite one being Star Wars Empire of Dreams, which starts off as a coverage of not only the cultural climate, but the cinematic climate of New Hollywood and the 1970s era filmmaking with films like Easy Rider and science fiction films like Logan's Run. Because Star Wars is, to me, the great American movie. It is everything about American ingenuity, about the universal multicultural melting pot style of Campbellian mythology that brings together all sorts of elements across the entire spectrum of storytelling. And then beyond that, you have technically masterclass levels of filmmaking, from the cinematography to the production design to the special effects to the creature effects, to even something as simple and as beautiful as a lightsaber fight. So to me, Star Wars is one of the great American movies. It's also considered so by the U.S. government and is stored in the Library of Congress. And more importantly, Star Wars tells a precise, clean narrative from beginning to end. You do not see movies like this anymore. You see movies that are trying to be smarter than the audience. I like Avengers Endgame, even though I admit it is not the greatest movie ever made. But one of the problems that I have discovered of the Russo Brothers is the same problem that plagues Rian Johnson's The Last Jedi and has plagued Game of Thrones Season 8 specifically. And that is the subversion of expectations. Now, we have these kind of self-aware filmmakers who view the internet and peruse what the fans are saying and say, I want to subvert these people's expectations because I'm conscious of the audience's perception of what might come next in my grand narrative of storytelling that I'm weaving for a multi-billion-dollar corporation. And for me, that is something you should entirely avoid as a filmmaker. Because when you do that, you start throwing out a key factor in storytelling, and that is logic. Does A flow to B naturally? Does B flow to C naturally? You know, does the A, B, and C plot flow through the season of a television show? You know, is the story making sense as it goes along? And yes, I am not a plot hole militant gripist where I hate the idea of, if I see one plot hole, it breaks immersion for me. And if I see more as the film goes on, I'm just drawn out entirely to, I can get invested in a movie if the narrative flows. But that is the problem with the postmodernist view of storytelling in specifically Hollywood right now, is that it is so not concerned with the narrative flowing and good narrative structure, and it is instead focused with these memorable moments in a story. And to me, that is just stupid. Part of my education in film school was really centered around making sure your story had good narrative flow, good narrative structure, the dialogue wasn't just pure cornball cheese, and that it was genuinely good, objectively good. Something that, for some reason, just plagues the commentary community currently. as if you are an avid viewer of the EFAP podcast, you'll see them cover these absolute fuckwits who, try to sound intelligent by saying shit like art is subjective. Yet there are things that there is a critical consensus that is good or is bad. And, you can delve into so bad it's good territory. But to me, I find that irrelevant to the overall discussion of, is this good, is this bad? I view that as like an outlier. Anywho, with this, self-aware style of filmmaking, you now have filmmakers saying things that would logically flow in the story. However, it does not come from the brain. It came from some guy in the internet. And because some guy in the internet said it, I should really try to one-up him, because how dare you try to be smarter than me, the filmmaker. And this wave of pretentiousness, I think, really gets to the heart of the issue. And that is that, if you're going to write a screenplay, get the fuck offline. Get the fuck offline. Focus on your craft. Why are you giving a shit about what people think your movie is going to be? Write your damn movie. Make sure it flows. Make sure it's good. Make sure that you're not just shitting on a screen for an hour, 2 hours, hell, even 3 hours. And, you see the last time we had a really great event film being the Lord of the Rings trilogy. You had a great beginning, you had a great middle, and you had a phenomenal end. Just a banging end. Just a resounding, we don't need to go any further. This is the end of the story. And that's what I think makes Return of the King better than The Two Towers and The Fellowship of the Ring. Because when certain franchises get around to the third movie, they usually run out of steam. And that is another problem. In the oversaturation of storytelling, like I talked about in my Modern Entertainment is Garbage video, is that we have this just constant need to push out crap. And yes, that is part of the studio system's fault. And it has been that way since, the major corporations took over the studios and the old Hollywood studio execs basically retired and sold off their life's work. And these people do not give a shit about what is good content. They just want you to be looking at that content. They want you to just be consuming, that old meme now of don't ask questions, just consume product and wait for next product. It's just so poignant when Red Letter Media did that on Nerd Crew. It was just like, wow, you guys really nailed it for a couple of dudes out in the Midwest talking about movies and shit. And, people bitch on the prequels, but the prequels still had somewhat of a consistent narrative flow, because George Lucas is not focused on what people think is going to happen in the movie. George Lucas is focused on finishing the movie, on making sure it's at least somewhat good, at least holds up to scrutiny. And yes, there are a lot of people who don't think it does, but he tried his best, okay? He tried his fucking best. And I don't think these modern filmmakers are really trying their best. I think they are trying to one-up the audience, because I'm the filmmaker. I know what I'm doing. You're just a pleb. You're just a pleb on the internet. You don't know shit. And for me, it's just like, why don't you just write a good movie, It's like, there's this old thing about Dustin Hoffman and Laurence Olivier working on a film. And Dustin Hoffman is trying to do all this crazy method shit. And like getting drunk and getting totally disoriented. And then Laurence Olivier is just like, man, why don't you just act? Why don't you just do your job? Acting. Why do you need to make it an experience? So many of these people, I also find, have not really lived. You know, they are not like these sort of gonzo style mavericks like Hunter S. Thompson or you know, people from the 70s who were in their 20s in the 70s. Unfortunately, these are boomers. But, you know, these boomers do have life experiences. They did crazy shit that, you know, I don't think generations to come will actually end up doing, and they'll be way more socially conservative in that aspect. But for me, I think that because these boomers, these, you know, the last great generation of fucking filmmakers lived life hard and, you know, experienced stuff, that's what was able to drive their filmmaking. You see a lot of these, like, auteurs nowadays just falling by the wayside because no one knows how to process what they're doing. Or they just want to prop up the affirmative action hire of the week, you know? And to me, it's like we're losing so much in Hollywood. And to adopt this, like, internet-conscious, postmodern style of storytelling is just going to drive it into the hole, man. Like, you know, my generation of filmmakers is just fucked right now. Like, none of us really have the stones, the balls to push forward. You know, a lot of the current generation of filmmakers are like in their 30s. They're still slightly Gen Xers. And for me, it's like, well, where are all the millennials? You know, they're coming of age, you know. Most people try to do their first feature in their 30s. And, you know, if they're really brave, they do it in their late 20s. And if they're fucking nuts, they do it when they're young. But to me, it's just a big problem in Hollywood to be talking about, you know, where's the story? Where's the craft in writing the script? Why are we just machine gunning these, like, subpar scripts into production? Oh, yeah, it's because we have a fucking deadline, bro. Like, but, you know, you have a deadline, yet you're trying to be internet conscious. It's like, why? Why don't you just focus on the fucking story in front of you that you have to finish at some point? You know, why can't you just make it flow and then worry about subverting expectations when you actually find out, shit, in order for the story to work, I need a twist. And, you know, genuine twists are great, but, you know, twisting for the sake of twisting is just making M. Night Shyamalan look like a genius in hindsight. And to wrap this up, focus on your script. I've said it so many times in this commentary, but just focus on your damn script. Stop going on the internet. Start realizing what classically works still works. It doesn't matter, you know, the context or how many times it's been done before. It genuinely works every fucking time. Why do origin stories still work? Simple. Because it's classic. It's reliable. It's getting you into these characters that you might follow down the line for years. And so, in conclusion, if you are going to subvert my expectations, tread lightly, because I will probably hate your work.